Okay, so today we're going to talk about steering on a motorcycle. Now, basically most people seem to think that motorbikes you have to lean to go around a corner and you steer the bike. Now, it's kind of conventional wisdom, but a lot of people don't really understand how a motorbike works, how it goes in a straight line, even let alone steering. Now, a motorbike will work regardless of whether you push it down a hill, whether you're on it or not, because this bike will carry on straight down a hill even if there's no rider on board. And what would happen is the back would follow the front all the way down to the bottom until it ran out of momentum or hit something and stopped. Now, steering on a bike, there are two schools of thought. Now, my preferred school of thought is probably not everybody else's. You see, most people believe that when you're leaning a bike like this. You're leaning it with the bike round the bends, using everything to pull the bike in to make it go round the corner. Now, that's not probably the best way to steer a bike. You see, once you're leaning a bike in, you're causing gravity to pull it down, and because the wheels are spinning, it wants to go that way. So if you want to go left, the bike naturally wants to go right. So it's very difficult to get a bike to turn. They shouldn't turn, because people don't really know how they turn, and the science behind it is incomplete. So let's say we're pulling the bike down, we're going around the bend, we're leaning it down, and we're turning the bars this way. Well, you'll end up in a bush or a hedge or a ditch. Part of the steering mechanism is counter steering, which is pushing this bar away to the opposite direction of travel, just slightly, and that allows the bike to settle and turn. So you turn right to go left, and then pulling the bike in as well with your head is what most people think is happening. But you don't have to do that, because when you're on a bike, especially in road conditions, country lanes, kind of any sort of normal conditions other than the track, you don't want your heaviest part of your body to be pulling the bike down, because as you lean into here and you're following the bike in, your head is pulling the bike further over because it's quite heavy. Now, if you've noticed something, as I'm talking to you, I'm straightening myself up on the bike. Now, most people think that it's not a good idea to sit up straight while you're trying to go around a bend, but if I'm doing this and I'm going around a bend and I'm keeping my body and my torso and my head straight, I can see where I'm going. I can see everything, where I'm going, where I want the bike to go. But if I'm leaning like this, I'm only seeing this part of whatever's in front of me. Now, it's not a good idea to cut off half of your vision or more. Now, I'm sat here, I want to go around the bend, so I'll put a tiny bit of left bar in. Okay, seems counterintuitive, but it's something that you'll get used to. And as you lean in and you start leaning with the bike, instead of doing this, get yourself straight, and as you do it, you'll stiffen up. So what you'll do naturally is to start pushing in a little bit of counter steering by just stiffening your arm a little bit while you try and push away from the bar to keep you straight. So you're pushing away from the bar to keep you in a straight position so you can see where you're going. And as you can see, I can wobble the bike underneath me and keep relatively straight. Okay, so as the bike leans to my left, your right, I'm pushing this arm to keep my body up, and the same here. So you naturally counter steer, and that makes a world of difference on riding a bike. The biggest reason is because you're not on a racetrack. You need to change direction reasonably quick in traffic, changing lanes, going around objects, going around cars that have suddenly broke in front of you, or somebody's run out. You need to be able to change direction. You cannot change direction by leaning in and then making the bike change a quick turn at the last minute, or something startled you, or something's jumped out and so on. You can't do it like that, because that takes time to set up. So when you're on a racetrack, you can set things up simply because you know what's coming, you know what bends are coming, what corners are coming, you know what speed you need to go into them and what speed you need to exit them, but that really doesn't happen on a road. Now, braking as well is a big misunderstood thing on a bike as well, because you're taught to slow down and brake and get your speed off before a bend, which is brilliant advice. That's what most people who ride a bike or learn to ride are taught. So scrub your speed off, get your speed under control before you go into a bend. Now that advice is 100% what you should be doing. But as you advance and you start riding more and more, you realize that you're kind of going off the throttle, on the brakes, no throttle, on the throttle, accelerate out. That's how you're going through your bends. Now there's a better way of doing it, and that's using the bike. The bike is designed to use predominantly the front brake and front tyre contact patch to do a lot of the control. So if you're coming into a bend and you've dropped your speed and you think, I'm going slightly too quick here, the worst thing you can do is to grab that front brake. That is a given. Now, if you're going into the bend and you think, I'm going a little bit drifting out towards a centre line, whether it's on your left or your right, and you don't want to get near that white line because it can be dangerous, then you can introduce a little bit of front brake, which seems counterintuitive again, because what it does is it settles that bike, or the weight of the bike, into the front tyre, onto that contact patch, gives you more grip and gives you more control over the bike. Now, as you do that, your suspension compresses and your front wheel comes back. You won't notice it, but it will come back towards the engine cradle or the front of the bike. And when it does that, what it does then is it alters the setup of your bike, or the geometry of the bike, and it allows the bike to steer quicker. Now, if with a bit of practice you start trailing the brake, which is gentle use of the brake, in to the start of the bend and then through the bend, you'll find that your braking and your cornering becomes smoother. You're not off the throttle, on the brakes, neutral throttle, on the throttle, and so on. You're just controlling your speed by coming off the throttle, measuring your speed out before the bend, and then just controlling your speed through the bend with the brake. It takes a bit of practice, but your lines and your cornering and your ability to steer the bike will be smoother. Now that takes a lot of practice, but it's just like anything else. You never grab the front brake, stamp on the rear. You never go so quick into a bend or a corner that you know you've got no hope of controlling it. But once you're getting into the bend or the corner and you're counter steering on the bike, you can bring in a tiny bit of brake as you turn, as you use the bars, the left bar, to help you steer through the bend. So all of these little tricks will make you a smoother, more confident rider. Now, just quickly going to recap the steering side of it, okay? As we said, when you steer into a bend, you set the bike up to turn, okay? So I want to turn left, which is your right. I'm going to push down on the bar, slightly on this bar here, to make the bike start to initiate its turn. It seems counterintuitive, but a little tiny bit of left bar will help you steer into the bend. And as you lean into the bend, you're going to start straightening your body up with this arm. That will give it a little bit more steering, but also keep your head and your vision on where you want to go. The last thing you really want to do on a busy road or any major road or any country lane is to start dropping your vision. Now, I think it was Mick Doohan, a very famous bike racer, who always steered by trying to keep his body straight and his head up. He wouldn't let it drag, he wouldn't start looking under the bars, he wouldn't allow his head to pull the bike in. And he was no slower than anybody else. In fact, most of the time he was quicker. Now, it does take a lot of practice to keep your body upright when you're steering. So you basically, the bike is steering underneath you. And you can see the mechanics of how that works as I rock the bike from side to side. You can see me straightening out this arm, okay, to push up the body, which naturally adds in a bit of counter steering. Same with this arm, same with this arm, same with this arm, and you know exactly where you're going to go. So there's my tips for better cornering using a straightened body, look where you're going, and a tiny bit of natural counter steering, along with the use of the front brake as you need it. But it takes practice, so find a nice gentle road with gentle bends and just try it. So thanks a lot for watching this and then coming with me on this little bit of a journey about riding and steering a bike. Bikes are fun, they're meant to be fun to use, and they're also meant to be easy to steer and to tell them to do what you want them to do. You should never be fighting your bike. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.